So hey, welcome. This is Wisconsin Shoe Guy, and today we're going to take a look at my entire shoe collection and all the different components of it. All right, welcome back. Today we're going to take a look at the entire collection. So Abe Lincoln from the Washington Nationals is here to say hello. And here we go, starting to look at some shoes. We have the new split toes coming in from Cru NonPareil. Some Carlos Santos, some Bontoni. This is all suede split toes. You Crockett & Jones, Carmina, TLB. And then on the shelf below, we have Fugashin and a Paraboot. And then now we have some mixes, right? We got the John Lobbs. You've got a pair of Alfred Sargents, Carmina, another pair of Alfred Sargents. These are the cap toe Oxfords, the only ones in my group. Now we move on to the split toe section, and we start with boots up at the top. Some G&G Carmina, some Alden, and then we get into my hand welted St. Crispin's, Acme, Paulo Scafora, the Yosol, the Hephaestus. These are October 10th. These are Enzo Bonifay. These are Ascot, and those are Meermin. And then these are now Goodyear welted. Those are Edward Green. This is all actually Utah calf. So the Meermin, the Edward Green, and these are Sons of Henry. Now these are other Goodyear welted in grains, Pebble grain. This is TLB Mallorca, Foster and Sons. That's a Meermin. This is from the Armoury, and then there's a willow grain from Meermin. And then we've got some shell cordovan from Alan Edmonds, from Alden, and then a nice museum calf from Sons of Henry. Then some Alan Edmonds, two pairs of Alan Edmonds, the Del Rey and the Walton, and then a pair of Bruno Mallis. Now we have some boots, a pair of Chukkas from Leftung, cowboy boots from Quero, Robert boots, Alan Edmonds service boots, the Higgins Mill. This is the this is not the Hamilton. This is the 5th Street boot in shell cordovan. This is the Santa Mock boot from the University. This is a Austerity Brogues. This is all wingtips here. This is the or actually all brogues, but the Austerity Brogues are from Gaziano and Gerling and from J. Fitzpatrick. And we've got a pair of Vass, Paulo Scafora, Stefano Bemer. These are Alfred Sargent, Meermin and Cognac Shell, Heinrich Dinkelacker, TLB, Churches. And we go down here. Those are Cheaney, Meermin, Carmina, Alan Edmonds. That's a Cobbler Union. Those are Barker for Edward James. And this is Alan Edmonds, Skolyx, and Alden for the wingtip collection. And now we have wholecuts from Meermin, Michael Darren. These are Macarielos, Enzo Boniface, Crockett & Jones, actually Crockett & Jones, Foster and Son, Loke, those are Cleverly, and then we have Adelaide's. These are the Barbonero, Enzo Bonifay, Patrio, Carlos Santos. This is Alfred Sargent, Crockett & Jones, Gaziano and Gerling, Hephaestus, St. Crispin's. This spare and shell cordovan is Alan Edmonds, Loke, Skolyx, Cleverly, Altan Senzo. That's another Loke, CNES, Carmina, Trickers, October 10th, and yes, these are TLB Mallorca. And then to my plain toes, shell cordovan PDBs from Alan Edmonds, Carmina, an Alden, and then my regular PTBs from Crockett and Jones. Actually, those are Trickers. These are Churches. Those are Crockett and Jones. And then my loafers. These are Macariello. Those are Meslin. These are Altan, Edward Green, and Yosel. So now we're going to talk about Norwegian welts. The Norwegian welt is a type of construction on the shoe. You can see it on the outside as they along the rim. Sometimes this can be 360 degrees, sometimes 270, sometimes 180. Most commonly when it's a fiddleback waist. As you look at these examples that I have here, there's a number of different ones, starting with this one from Meermin. And you can see this is a braided Norwegian welt. So it actually has an additional stitch on the inside. So it's not just rows of stitches. This is an example of a 360 done with natural thread on these St. Crispins. And it goes all the way around, but it has a really good contrasting color, but it's also a linear welt. Here's an example of a linear welt on these Bontonis. Not necessarily as neat as the others, but also very nice. And this one is actually kind of braided, which is very different on these Acmes. A 180 because it does have a very sharp fiddleback waist. Now, different makers are going to take different ways of doing it. Generally speaking, these Meermins both have the same exact braided welt, and so you're going to see that every time you do a Norvegese stitch. The Bontonis are going to have a lot of differentiation because it's a much deeper maker, same with Acme. Now the Palo Scaforas are mostly linear, and then the St. Crispins are both the same because they use that linear welt. Now the difference is that one is 360 on the split toe, but the Adelaide there is only 180 because it has a pegged waist, which is a little different. So the key thing to remember with Norwegian welts is that they are an additive design. They do take a little bit of formality away from the shoe, especially with the contrast like this. So that's something to keep in mind. Now these Scaforas are a 270 welt and a matching color. So because it's a matching color, it reduces the formality significantly less than if it's the contrast. So let's talk about hole cuts. A hole cut Oxford is made from a single piece of leather. And there's a lot of different varieties to it. It can come in different grains of leather. It can come in hatch suede. Can have a medallion like this one here. That's actually called a floating medallion. And when you look at it, it's called floating because it's not on a cap, like a wingtip or a cap toe. And you can have different intricacies of medallion depending on the shoe. So where it has a more rounded last, it can take up a small portion. Where it has a chisel last, like the one you just saw, it can almost take up the entire width of the shoe. It's an exciting way of differentiating the shoe, but hole cuts, by their nature, are very, very simple. It's just the one piece of leather. So the question always comes up among aficionados is, do you want to have a medallion at all, or does that detract from the hole cut? Now here's another example of almost a hole cut, but it has a strap in the back. This is a Meermin, so that is a little different. Again, you want to think about what makes a hole cut and what makes it great. There is an option that you can get to get a seamless hole cut, meaning it doesn't even have the seam along the back. So it's really one piece of leather. This is very, very hard for a shoemaker to do. And what I've seen in a lot of the brands is that they'll actually charge quite a bit more for this. So like if you look at the St. Crispin website, they'll charge almost, I think it's 500 euros more for it. So I'm sorry I'm having to voice over this. My phone actually ruined the audio. So I'm going to start left clockwise on the shoes themselves. It's a Crockett and Jones. Then it's an Enzo Bonifay. Then it's a Michael Darren. Then a Loke. Then a Macariello. The one I just lifted up was a Cleverly with the staining on the suede. And this is a Foster & Sons. And this is the nicest hole cut that I have. This is at their top of the line in their ready to wear series, and has a lot of features that are only available on Bespoke. So that is hole cuts. My first one was this blue one. I got it in 2019. Just sold my wife on the idea of a blue shoe, and she said, "Hey, that one looks really slick." I'd always been nervous about getting a hole cut because of the wrinkling, but as you can see, the wrinkling on all of these is not bad, and on this particular one, it's very, very good, and that's just because of the fit. So let's talk about floating medallions again, and let's talk about plain toe Adelaides. Adelaides don't always have a medallion, but the plain toes almost always have them. And Adelaide is because of this U throat here, and any kind of other adornment that you have. And it can look very different. You see this one has the special shape on it. The one on the right is a little bit more U shaped, and can have all kinds of different varieties with it. But the floating medallion, you can see is kind of consistent on both, and is a really nice way of adorning a plain toe shoe. Now these are also kind of hole cut ish because they have just the U throat cut out of them. Otherwise, they're one piece of leather. But they're also varying qualities, right? The CNES on the left is their entry line, where the one on the right is a special markup that I did in shell cordovan, where I did a split reverse welt on it. I did a natural color welt, a buff edge, and then I did a double JR sole on it. So they can be really exciting shoes, and they add a little bit of flair to a hole cut by adding that U throat. So let's talk about Adelaides. Since we talked about the plain toe, these are some uh, regular Adelaides, more of your traditional types, and you can have them with a lot of variety here as well. You can see that these have a plain leather, a hatch grain leathers. This one is a wingtip. That's a cap toe, a straight tip, on a chisel last. Then it's got a round last. Then this one is a hole cut Adelaide, where everything is actually stitched in underneath and kind of reversed. So that's a nice little area, and you can tell that on the sides very well. And then, of course, on the right is the bi-material, where it has kudu in the vamp and then baby box calf on the front, on the facing, and on the heel caps. You can do a lot with Adelaides, and they're really a versatile shoe. This wingtip one has no gimping on it, and the lack of gimping really adds to the formality and creates a very, very clean look. You can see there is a medallion on the one, and that is an option that you can get depending on what you're looking for in the shoe. Now, the shoes themselves are from different makers. So moving from left to right, there is the October 10th, then that's an Enzo Bonifay, a Patrio, a Hephaestus, and then the one I'm touching here is a Mecariello. And now the difference that I'm talking about here is that you can have different numbers of eyelets for the laces. So the number of laces can vary significantly as well as the shape of the U throat. Now, if you look at the Hephaestus, which is the reverse one, that only has 3 eyelets, and that's a very, very different look, a very clean look compared to the others. Now, you also have the difference in the heel caps, where like that one is plain, this one is peaked, and you can see differences there. You also see the difference on the broguing, and of course, here is where I point out the lack of gimping. On the Enzo Bonifay, they actually have a patina on there to make the brogue lines darker, which is very, very attractive. So the split toe derby can come in a lot of different fashions. This is a hand welted version. with a couple of top lines. Has a raised stitch on the outside with two different types of material, or two different pieces of material. Could be the same type, could be different. And this is an outer stitch. Here you have a different kind of stitch here, and a different stitch there, a different stitch here, different stitch there. Then again the same in suede with some differences. Here's an outer, and this is actually one piece of material with like a little piece of piping in between. So some interesting differences overall. What I love about split toes is that there's so much variety. You can have a derby where this piece of material is totally different. It can have caps, cannot have caps. You can have just a single piece with caps. You know, this piece does not have caps, but the rest do. And this is the icon of the split toe derby. This is the Edward Green Dover Utah calf. This particular one has a rubber sole, but you can have really good split toes with really nice rubber soles, really nice leather soles, all kinds of different things. So it is a very versatile shoe, and it is one of the most exciting shoes that I have, and that's why the split toe derby is the most number of shoes I have in my collection, next to Adelaide's. Like many other parts of my collection, I have far too many wingtips to put them all on here at once. So what I did was I took a selection of them to really talk about what makes a wingtip a wingtip. So first, a wingtip refers to the wings here. So how the tip here actually goes off in wing patterns, okay, to the side. It does not refer to the little peak here that most people consider it to be. So that is kind of a misnomer and something that just is not necessarily well known in the industry. But if you actually lay the piece of leather out, it just looks like a wing, which is how it gets its name. And of course, these have multiple wings on it. But this is a U cap, which is a type of wingtip. This is an Oxford. Here we have a wingtip derby, okay, which is also called a Budapester. If it has really big brogues, it can be called a country shoe. This is made by Vass, so very, very well done. This is a custom patina on it. This is made by Edmonds. Now this is a chiseled last on a wingtip Oxford. It's a very big patina, very big medallion. It's not called a floating medallion when it's on a wingtip or on a cap. You can see all pieces are separate pieces of leather, except for up here at the top line. And this is by Stefano Bemer. So, very good Italian brand here. So, Edmonds, Vass, Bemer. This is over in the UK. This is an Alfred Sargent. And this is a country shoe, but it's a version called the Long Wing Blucher. Typically an American shoe. This just happens to be a British version of it. Very often in a pebble grain, but you can get them in all grains. I even have some in shell cordovan, and just smooth leather. So, I have Churches, and I have Alden and Edmonds, a lot of different brands make this particular shoe, and it's pretty well respected and a very good, versatile, solid shoe. Typically American in styling though, so people who like the slicker European shoes may not like this, but for me, I happen to like it a lot. It's also called a gunboat because it kind of looks like a boat. This is the part though, like waterline on the long wing. Kind of a cool way to look at it. This is a wingtip Adelaide. This happens to be in waxy kudu. you look carefully, you can see the scarring on the leather very, very well. This particular model is made by Barbonera out of Italy, and very nice. Kind of rough around the edges, kind of a cross between a casual and a dress shoe here. Now this one is also back to England. This is an austerity brogue, and now most wingtips are considered full brogues, but the this has no broguing or the little holes on it at all, and is considered far dressier than the rest. This particular one happens to be a Gaziano and Garland Connaught. Very high-end sole. Nice fiddleback waist. Just really nice. Now, John Lobb introduced a model a few years ago, and this is in Museum Calf, kind of as a tribute to John Lobb, but this is actually made by JimJun in China, and this is called a spiral hole cut. So this is one piece of leather, and it's actually wrapped all the way around, all the way around, all the way around. Has a wing, so short wing here. Has the little peak here to make the W, but that's not a wing. But this, it's a long wing, or a Balmoral, kind of looks the same on that perspective, but then it wraps around here, more like a Balmoral, because it stops up here at the facing, and then it goes up to an Adelaide. So it's an interesting design of shoe. Kind of can't figure out what it wants to be. They're generally on the higher end, hand welted stuff. This happens to be a modified Goodyear welt, but still a very good shoe. Let's see, pretty well made. Beautiful, beautiful museum cap on this, and that's that. So this is the wingtip. You know, I love wingtips because they're versatile. You can have very, very dressy, you can have very, very casual, and really everything in between. And to me, it's one of the most difficult shoes for the shoemaker to make because there's so many pieces, and it just requires a lot of work. And you can really tell a lot as a collector, understanding the difference between how well, you know, they skive and, you know, put the pieces together to make them smooth, and just really how true they take the art of shoemaking as they do it. So exciting stuff. Thanks for watching. So as you're looking at soles, there are a few different things that you need to look at. You have closed channel or open channel soles like these. Sometimes as they wear, you can see that they kind of close up. Then you have blind stitch soles like these. You have closed stitch soles here where they're just hammered shut. Then you have blind stitch ones with toe nails. Then you have with toe plates that are like a half moon called Lulus. Then you have these trapezoid ones that are called Triumph plates. And then of course you have rubber soles.